starts with breaking news.
Happening right now, Gulfport police investigating a serious crash you're looking at right now involving a pedestrian. This is a live look at the scene on Highway 49 near Airport Road. That's close to the Walmart store. Several patrol cars are on the scene right now, as you can see by the blue lights, and traffic is down to just one lane in both directions. On Highway 49, you can see it's moving rather slow there. Now, we have a crew heading to the scene, and we're working on bringing you more information as we get it in. Heavy rains hitting parts of Mississippi today. Residents in those areas busy now trying to pick up the pieces after today's bad weather left many homes, vehicles, and property destroyed. A tornado touching down today in Simpson County, causing many residents to become trapped in their homes, having to be rescued by firefighters. More than 1,000 customers without power today after the storms swept through the area. We'll have more on this developing story and what the National Weather Service is saying about it coming up. And is the rain expected to continue? Let's get a quick check on our first alert forecast with meteorologist Andrew Wilson. Andrew. And a follow-up to a story we reported earlier this week, a $1,000 reward now being offered for the safe return of some puppies. The litter that was stolen from the Hancock County Animal Shelter. The dogs are only about 4 weeks old. An anonymous donor is offering the money in hopes of getting the animals back to safety. Well, your next Amazon purchase could cost you more. The online shopping website will charge sales tax on purchases made in Mississippi. The 7% tax goes in effect February 1st this year. Amazon is already doing that in 29 other states. New at 6:30 tonight, it's an inauguration eve, and the Magnolia State will be well represented for the big event. Courtney Ann Jackson has the latest on Mississippians who will be in attendance. Donald Trump is sworn in as the 45th president.
Courtney Ann Jackson, WLOX News Now.
Well, South Mississippi is being well represented at the inauguration as well. Gulfport resident Gina Shavers is in our nation's capital right now. She's joining us on the phone to tell us all about the festivities going on. Gina?
Lots of red, white, and blue everywhere. Haven't seen really any protesters at all, but lots of patriotic people excited.
Now, about how thick is the crowd, would you say?
It's kind of medium. There were probably 4,000 to 5,000 people at the reflecting pool around the Lincoln Memorial, but they've got the streets shut down so they can prepare for the parade. So there's not any traffic that is blocking anything. So lots of moving people going everywhere.
Now, Gina, I'm going to ask you real quick about his speech. I know it was a brief speech that Donald Trump made over on the Lincoln Memorial, but tell me, was there anything in particular that stood out? I know he talked a lot about change.
Nothing really that stood out to me other than the fact that we are going to make America great again.
All right, Gina, thanks so much.
All right.
Jackson County resident Mark Cumbus is also among those in Washington right now, and we spoke with him about his experience so far.
It is a wonderful atmosphere. The weather is unbelievably great as compared to the last inaugural I attended in 2001. It's weather's cooperating. Everything is fine. Everybody's in a very festive mood. We're looking forward to the inauguration tomorrow and the ball that follow.
Meanwhile, President-elect Trump is attending his first pre-inaugural events in the nation's capital, including a welcome concert and a somber wreath laying, which is what we just talked about. Now, he takes the oath of office tomorrow morning. Craig Boswell has more from Washington.
Craig Boswell, CBS News, Washington.
The chance to win your very own dream home and help out a good cause is here. It's the annual St. Jude Dream Home, and tickets are now on sale. And if you get your ticket by January 27th, you'll be eligible to win a $2,500 Visa gift card. That ticket puts you in the running to win the 2,600 square foot home, which is valued at $435,000. For your chance to at a winning and more information, head over to WLOX.com for all the details. And the search is on for LSU's next Mike the Tiger. And whoever it is will have a pretty big pause. To fill. But first,
it was a wet afternoon across South Mississippi, but we have drier weather moving in as we make our way throughout Friday. Not until we get more storms, though, in for Saturday. We'll talk all about that coming up, but first a look at the tidal and rain forecast for tonight.
Now, WLOX First Alert Weather with meteorologist Andrew Wilson.
Well, strong storms and a few
A crash on Highway 49 in Gulfport involving a pedestrian has traffic backed up. Our Hugh Keaton is live on the scene with more.
Live in Gulfport, Hugh Keaton, WLOX News Now.
Your news starts right now.
This moment is your moment. It belongs to you.
A historic day today for our country. Donald Trump sworn in as the 45th president of the United States of America. Hundreds of thousands of people gathered in the nation's capital to watch Trump raise his right hand and take the presidential oath. Not everyone in D.C. happy about the new administration. Protesters crowding into the city expressing anger and disappointment. Most of those protesters made their stance peacefully, holding signs and shouting their messages. Others, however, destroying businesses and turning violent. We'll have more on the inauguration ceremony and those against it in just a few minutes. But first, developing now in Harrison County, the identity still has not been released of the pedestrian who was killed last night when a Gulfport police officer's patrol car struck him. The latest on that investigation and how Biloxi police are stepping in, coming up. Another big story, we're tracking severe weather heading our way. Let's go over to meteorologist Andrew Wilson with what we can expect overnight. Not pretty.
Yeah, Christina, we've been tracking this the past several days as severe weather has been kind of on our minds. We'll have a complete update on this coming up in just a moment, as well as a look at the 7-day forecast.
Thank you, Andrew. President Donald Trump is celebrating his inauguration and his unlikely victory that brought him to the White House. As America's 45th president, he will preside over a deeply divided nation. Craig Boswell reports from Washington.
Craig Boswell, CBS News, Washington.
This evening, the president and Mrs. Trump will attend 3 inaugural balls. 95 people arrested today as thousands of protesters descended on Washington, D.C. for the inauguration. Protesters carrying anarchy flags knocked over trash cans and destroyed windows as they swarmed through the streets. A few even tried to fight off the police in an attempt to escape, injuring 2 police officers. Police fought back with pepper spray and tear gas. Many demonstrators were handcuffed with zip ties and led away one by one. At least one person was taken to the hospital. Most of the protests were peaceful, however. They say the actions of a few hurts their anti-Trump message.
These groups that are breaking windows and things like that delegitimizes a lot of the reason that the rest of us are here.
More protests are scheduled for Saturday. Many residents from South Mississippi are in the nation's capital for this historic day. Gary Sturdivant, who's best known for his role leading the Salvation Army, said attending an inauguration was on his bucket list. We talked with him today on the phone and asked how he felt about being in Washington, watching American democracy in action.
It's so peaceful to watch this transition take place today.
In South Mississippi, Mississippi Trump supporters are celebrating. Hugh Keaton is live in Biloxi with a group of those supporters.
Reporting live in Biloxi, Hugh Keaton, WLOX News Now.
Thank you. Now a follow-up to a story we first broke on the 6:30 show last night. A pedestrian killed when a Gulfport police officer's patrol car struck him as he tried to cross Highway 49. Harrison County Coroner Gary Hargrove says he is still trying to contact the victim's family. Once he does, the man's identity is expected to be released. Biloxi police now stepping in to take over the investigation, saying they will leave no rock unturned as they work to reconstruct the scene of the accident.
Well, this is difficult all the way around. You know, there's a life that's been lost here. There's a policeman involved with it. But, you know, we do the investigation. We let the facts speak for themselves. I think that the agencies along the coast here all work that way.
Police will reconstruct the accident, part of which will be done at the scene of the crash. Dyke says the investigation will likely take about 30 days and that he's working with MDOT to determine the best time to do the reconstruction work. The area where the crash took place now being called into question for its safety and lighting concerns. That section of the road is lined with shops, restaurants, and hotels. There are also lots of pedestrians crossing the 6 lanes of traffic every day. Some areas of the median are wide enough for people to cross, but in other areas there is no median at all. But the people who cross the highway multiple times a day say they have a few suggestions.
They don't have any walkways to cross this highway here. It's a brand new highway, as you can see, and there's no way to get across it. You have to actually jaywalk.
Other suggestions from pedestrians include better lighting, And for everyone, pedestrians and drivers, to be much more cautious. Thousands of protesters headed to Washington to protest their rights in tomorrow's Women's March, including dozens from the Magnolia State. Plus,
a threat for severe weather is developing for tonight. We'll let you know everything you need to know about this threat coming up, but first a look at the title of the marine forecast for tonight.
Now, WLOX First Alert Weather with meteorologist Andrew Wilson.
Good idea to hunker down during that storm. Thank you, Andrew. President Donald Trump's inauguration ceremony was likely watched all over the world and in many classrooms. Jonathan Brandon brings us to one Coast classroom that tuned in.
In Biloxi, I'm Jonathan Brandon for WLOX News Now.
New at 6:30 tonight, hundreds of thousands of protesters are planning a march on Washington tomorrow. They say their event will be peaceful, but their message powerful. Courtney Ann Jackson was there as a Mississippi group left for Capitol Hill today.
Courtney Ann Jackson, WLOX News Now.
And this just into the WLOX newsroom. President Trump has signed one of his first executive orders ordering federal agencies to ease the burden of the Affordable Care Act. Now, according to White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer, Trump wants to ease the burden as we transition from repeal to replace. Trump also signed papers confirming the appointments of James Mattis as Secretary of Defense and John Kelly as Secretary of Homeland Security.
More news starts right now.
New details tonight about the suspect who was killed by police in South Haven, Mississippi late last night after shooting two officers. Two DeSoto County Sheriff's deputies injured in the shootout, both now recovering. The suspect, now revealed to be a career criminal possessing a lengthy list of criminal charges and convictions. Of course, we'll have more on that story coming up. But first, a follow-up to a story we first reported nearly 2 years ago. A homeless man convicted of violently attacking and then sexually assaulting a woman has been sentenced to life in prison without parole. Andrew Cruz Jr. was found guilty today of assaulting the victim at a homeless camp near Lowe's in Gulfport. After being tied up and assaulted, the woman was eventually able to escape and call police. It was 1 week ago that a pedestrian died after being hit by a Gulfport police officer on Highway 49. Tonight, the investigation continues. Biloxi Police reconstruction crews return to the scene of the deadly accident to more clearly map out the area to scale. Biloxi Police were asked to investigate because a Gulfport police officer was involved. It could be up to 60 days before the investigation is complete. Officials say they have identified the victim, but his name has not been released because they're still trying to locate his family. In the meantime, Gulfport Councilman Arlie Flowers is making his case to make the area safer with better lighting. He says he doesn't put the blame on anyone or anything, but he says there is a constant danger for pedestrians who cross the busy stretch of highway, and low visibility doesn't help the situation. The problem is that the lights on this part of the highway are owned and operated by MDOT. He's pushing to change that.
They've left the cities, specifically Gulfport, looking bad because our lights aren't on. And people think that we're responsible for all of them. They don't care who's paying the bill. They just know they're paying taxes and they should all be on.
MDOT engineer Kelly Castleberry says that while the agreement with the city is on the horizon, he has no idea when it can be done because MDOT would have to find funding to replace the lights. Governor Phil Bryant, along with state emergency officials, held a press conference this afternoon in Forest County. FEMA officials also spoke, encouraging victims of the tornado to register for assistance, but warning them of potential scams as they do so.
If I'm right, Mr. Director, FEMA personnel will not be calling directly and asking the general public for their Social Security numbers. So we want to be careful that we are responding to those that have been affected by the storm, but unfortunately there is always that fraud element.
The governor said he spoke with President Trump and has updated him on recovery efforts. A new sense of appreciation is being felt for those who have experienced a tornado firsthand. Tonight, a story of heroism out of Petal, one of the main areas hit by the tornado. Two neighbors are now extremely thankful for one another after the devastating storm nearly took all of their lives. Jack Bedrosian has their amazing story. The enormous task of storm cleanup continues throughout the Pine Belt region. President Trump signed a disaster declaration clearing the way for federal assistance to those who lost homes and businesses. Steve Phillips reports on the volunteer response in Hattiesburg.
Steve Phillips, WLOX News Now.
A suspect with an extensive criminal history is dead after exchanging gunfire with police. What happened in the hour leading up to that shootout? Next. Plus.
And cooler and drier air is moving into South Mississippi. We'll look at how low it'll get tonight. But first, here's a look at your tidal and marine forecast for tonight.
Now, WLOX First Alert Weather with meteorologist Eric Johnson.
Investigators have identified the suspect accused of shooting 2 DeSoto County deputies in the line of duty Wednesday. Deputies say this man, Kevin Washington, died in the shootout. Both deputies are expected to be okay. One shot in the foot and a second in the chest. Chris Luther has more on what went down before the shootout took place. Washington was found with some allegedly stolen items and one gun. Deputy Brandon Hutchins and Deputy Hunter Garrett are on paid administrative leave while the MBI investigates. Both are expected to make a full recovery and give statements soon. President Donald Trump is talking about increasing the import tax on items brought into the country from Mexico, but he thinks it could be a great move. Coming up. President Donald Trump rallied congressional Republicans around his vision for the country while speaking in Philadelphia today. But the president's plan to build a wall along the U.S.-Mexico border has increased tension with the president of Mexico. Weijia Jiang reports.
Weijia Jiang, CBS News, Philadelphia.
Republicans say the price tag to build the wall could be as much as $15 billion. Police departments from Gulfport and D'Iberville are squaring off tonight. Our very own Hugh Keaton joins us live at Gulfport High School with more on the fun-filled basketball game, all to promote good relations between the police and community. Hugh?
Live in Gulfport, Hugh Keaton, WLOX News Now.
Thanks, Hugh. Looks like a lot of fun out there. A Wisconsin teen going viral, and it's all thanks to a life hack that he created to make a grueling chore a lot more fun.